We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
President Joe Biden delivered his second State of the Union speech last week, the first to a fractured Congress. But what was his message? Did he make the grade? And ultimately, what was the real driver behind his haphazard rhetoric? Welcome to Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's special edition, we have the designated Liberty Nation State of the Union panel to dissect and decode what really went down. I'd like to say a special thank you to our listeners on KACT on 1360 AM out of Andrews, Texas. Thanks for being part of the team. And remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news, analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. The question of a unifying theme in Biden's State of the Union has the nation scratching its collective head. Was the scattergun approach to topics without an overarching motif all part and parcel of a grander plan for President Biden? Well, we're fortunate to be joined by our special Liberty Nation panel of senior political analyst and longtime host of this here show, Mr. Tim Donner, chief political correspondent and satirist, Graham J. Noble, and legal affairs editor and host of the Uprising podcast, Mr. Scott D. Cosenza, Esquire. We must add the Esquire there just to get your qualifications in, Scott, and we do appreciate it. I'm sure Dr. Jill
took a number
Biden
of years
too.
to get those, a year for each letter, I think.
It's the SQs like the doctor in Dr. Jill Biden.
No, it's
Absolutely.
Definitely not, Tim. It's nothing like that at all, as a matter of fact.
Well, as Whoopi Goldberg says, she should be Surgeon General of the United States.
Mhm.
So, gents, we all suffered last night or early this morning watching the State of the Union. Overall impressions, did it land or not? What do you think, guys?
Well, you know, in my opinion, it was a typical State of the Union in the sense that it was just a laundry list of everything that they have accomplished, using air quotes, which involves reaching into taxpayer pockets and borrowing money to the tune of a 31 trillion plus national debt. That's 31 followed by not 3 or 6 or 9, but 12 zeros. I like to make that point from time to time. But, you know, it's always possible for a president to craft a message that makes it sound like he's George Washington, Abe Lincoln, FDR, and Reagan rolled into one. But, you know, he tried to do it again. And I actually thought in the first half of the speech, it was interesting if you listened closely. He was somewhat influenced by America First populism, the way he kept talking about American jobs and made in America, and the Trump-type themes, which you never heard during the Obama years. It was heartening in some senses, but then, of course, in the second half, he just descended into all the woke initiatives. And then what was particularly offensive to me, not that I'm not used to it, is the attempt to again make it seem like Republicans are just on the verge of taking away your Social Security, your Medicare, and everything else. We've been hearing this message from the left literally for decades. And so we heard it again. So it's just a typical left-wing speech, but it did lay out the basic contours of his re-election campaign, which I expect he will kick off in a matter of days, if not a few weeks.
Okay, Tim, so you talked about themes there and contours, but for me, it didn't seem that there was a unifying theme, or as Einstein might put it, a grand unified theory. Graham, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the talk of unification coming from Joe Biden is just crazy anyway, because we know that it's only going to be a matter of days or weeks at the most before he is delivering an address somewhere else at some perhaps campaign stop or some conference or wherever. And he's going to start talking about the threats posed by MAGA Republicans once again, and the fact that we, and I say when I say we, I mean those of us who are on the political right, so to speak, that we're all a bunch of dangerous extremists who are hell-bent on destroying the country. So, it's kind of like Hillary Clinton's basket of deplorables moment. When she made that comment, I knew right there and then that she had just sunk any chance she had whatsoever of winning the 2016 election, because you can't talk about unity but then literally admit that you hate half the country. And Joe Biden has already done this on multiple occasions. So any talk of unity, and I will add that he often frames unity because he is a career politician and he spent 17 or 18 decades in the Senate. It certainly felt like it.
He laid the foundational stone of that building on his first day.
He did, right? But I think it was the Roman Senate that he began with.
Yeah.
But anyway, when he describes unity, he frames it in terms of legislative achievement. He always talks about, his idea of unity is, well, Democrats and Republicans in the Congress are working together. But of course, even that's nonsense, because if you get a bill that the Democrats passed with maybe 2 or 3 Republican votes, he will call that a bipartisan bill, just the same way that they called the January 6th committee a bipartisan committee when, the Democrats literally dictated which 2 Republicans would be on that committee. And they were both certainly not, they were partisan themselves. So the nonsense, so unity, bipartisanship, this is all, it's all a mirage.
I think Scott, our resident legal scholar, would point out to us, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if you had 2 people about to appear on a jury, for example, as you did on the January 6th committee, Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, names I thought I may never have to mention again, they would be struck from the jury, wouldn't they, Scott?
Well, I was thinking that you only need, actually, Graham gave it too much credit with 2 or 3 Republicans to make it bipartisan. You only need the one.
Yeah,
that's when it becomes bipartisan. And yeah, of course, Mark. But let's not. I think I've yelled at you before about this. That committee has as much in common with an actual criminal trial as a pineapple. I mean, they are not alike at all.
They all wear shoes outdoor. Now, come on, let's talk about the State of the Union here. There's quite a bit of to and fro.
I didn't even get a chance to give my 2 cents, which is I'm so disappointed in my colleagues for their cynicism. We had a president stand up to the drug companies, let us know that America can do no wrong when we work together, and there is no collection of Americans that some other collection of Americans can't steal from to better their lot. And I, for one, say, let's get to work.
Let's get to work. Yeah, I mean, the taxpayer has truly had a very busy year spending all of these trillions of dollars. That's trillion with 12 zeros, as Tim Donner likes to point out. Scott, I do have a question for you. And it was really about the to and fro that occurred during the speech, especially with some of the more raucous Republicans.
Interesting, huh? Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, right? I'm from the UK, and we're quite used to seeing adversarial politics, as in, one side will shout at the other, even when they're in the middle of a speech, and they'll start trying to make a point or make an argument. And I'm quite used to it. It's not as bad as the Australian Parliament, where obviously fistfights and whatnot yet. But there's a reason it's 2 sword lengths apart for the Westminster House of Parliament. But it seems that the media is quite a bit in shock now, doesn't it, Scott? At this a pearl-clutching shock, I might add, at the behavior of some of the Republicans. What's your take?
Well, of course, my take is that if you process their comments as they are Democrat operatives with bylines, they'll make more sense than if they were just reporters. But there did seem to be a bit more interaction than usual last night, I'll say, and Biden seemed to be more interested in engaging with that interaction.
Yes.
But I think that, as I recall, State of the Unions passed in my lifetime that I consumed as they were occurring, there's usually a once or maybe twice where there's a bit of a flippant comment that could be made by the president reacting to what's happening in the chamber. But it went on for more than usual last night, and there were more instances of it. I think.
Yeah, but it's for some people. I think it may have came across as a grumpy old man who can't let an insult slide. I don't know. That was just my take on it.
I can't imagine, by the way Biden just yells at everybody and how that's good speech making. I literally was watching and just kept thinking, how is this a good? To me, it makes the case that speech making is not an important part of being president of the United States or winning that office, because how can that be good?
Well, I would just ask, if I could ask for
Please.
one thing from Joe Biden, it would be for him and his fellow leftists to define precisely what fair share is. They keep going, everybody needs to pay their fair share, which is the most demagogic political point you can make, and they keep using it. They never define it. How about it, Mr. President? What's a fair share? Tell us.
That is a great question to ask, and one that Thomas Sowell himself asked. What is a fair share of your money to give to somebody else? But I think Tim Donner put it better. Now, we're talking State of the Union with our special Liberty Nation panel. After this short break, we'll be back picking out the high points and the low points. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe
You only
space.
did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.